What's up? I don't really know how to start these, and I figured that I'm just gonna start them like how I talk. So I've been in Caltech for 2 weeks. It's Saturday night, about to be Sunday. Just about 2 weeks since I've been here, and I try to be generally reflective in my day-to-day life, but particularly in this moment as I enter into this new phase and enter into this new place. I really have been trying to be reflective to try to take in as many insights as possible about what makes this place so special. Um, I wanted to do this relatively early in my time at Caltech because I felt like in this moment I'm very in tune with the similarities, the differences of a place like Caltech between a more traditional university, which I guess would be like Oklahoma State, where I went for my undergrad. Essentially, I'm trying to unpack or maybe get to the bottom of what is really true about the sorts of tales that academic the academic culture has told us about schools like this versus other schools and what's not true. So, in particular, I guess I'll say that for one, I've been very impressed. I very much enjoy this place. I definitely feel like I'm intellectually and personality wise at home in a lot of ways with these people. It's very nice. And I guess one thing I've obviously been floored by how successful and how, I want to use the word effective, these people are at achieving the goals that they want to. I don't want to use the word like brilliant. Seems like loaded, but just I want to say that they have a very high efficacy at achieving their goals in research, and I think that that is particularly of note. I've noticed in particular that these people are quite successful, and I have been trying to disentangle why, and I've been letting it sort of mill around in my brain without creating any concrete ideas because I kind of wanted to just let it come out organically. And I believe that as a general, there's something, okay, I'll start with a caveat. There's something definitely to be said about the inertia of academic research that begets success. The simple fact that Caltech has a big name means they get the best graduate students, which means these students are well funded, which means that the professors don't have to pay for those students, which means even more money for them to focus on research, which means better research, which means more research money. And you can see it's all a positive feedback cycle. So there's definitely something for these prestigious universities that's just essentially something similar to like a first to the market sort of benefit that, but in this case it's just like the first to market equivalent is the prestige. Like prestige is a sort of self fulfilling prophecy. It's a positive feedback loop. Prestige makes success, which makes prestige makes success. And I wanted to clear that up straight out of the way that there's definitely something to be said about that that just makes life easier for people at an institution like this. And I mean, that's why I and so many other people have wanted and chose to go to an institution like this, I'm sure. It definitely is, at least for me, was a large part in that I felt like I would be given the best opportunities to do the best possible science. And that meant a lot to me. And that probably means a lot to a lot of people of like-minded who are like-minded, and of course that's not surprising, and it's really useful, and it definitely shows. So I mean, it's not that I wasn't aware of this. I definitely, to a certain degree, you kind of just like tip your cap at like the inertia of it all. Like, there's definitely things to be said about the issue of that, and like how can we create a situation in which, actually, when I think about it, I don't know if research, like if institutions need to be equalized. I think we just need to appreciate more the work that everyone does. I don't know if there needs to be work done to make the difference between top institutions and lower ones, the difference between them diminish. I think that what we really need to do is just change the way we look at what people do and value them all equally. A place like this, for example, if you want to talk about criticisms, it just tends itself to very, as they would like to say, fundamental research, which you can say in a positive light, but also as someone who came from a land grant university with a lot of particularly people who are focused on helping others in everything they do, this place often lacks a groundedness. I've immediately noticed that it almost is like a bubble outside of the real world of just intellectual freedom, which is beautiful, but also there is definitely a loss of application. There is definitely a loss of self-awareness, and it allows like a bubble of like elitism to form, which I haven't noticed as of yet. I've been noticed people to be generally very down to earth and just happy to be doing what they're doing and happy that they've been given the opportunities that they've been given. But I can see how it can just free up room for elitism to creep in and begin to flourish. Just this sort of not disdain, but almost disdain for just being told that something needs to be done for a purpose, and I am definitely aware right now that I'm sort of rambling to a certain degree, but I think I'm going to let myself continue and just follow through with my thoughts and try to tie them up as best I can. But on note of being the reasons why I've noticed that people are successful here, from every meeting that I've gone through, I really try to reflect on them after and notice the tendencies about the people that lead to their success. And I also like to ask people and ask people why they think they're successful, and ask other people why they think those people are successful. And there are definitely things I've noticed. There is an attention to detail, and I mean this in the sense of like, there is an ability to discern when something hasn't been pinned down scientifically correctly, as rigorously as it should have been, which also simultaneously, or it is probably an emergent property of the fact that there's a ferocity of reading, which very much impresses me, and I'm trying to emulate myself of just people who are just really willing to read the literature. And I've noticed that so a lot of these things I have definitely noticed from professors at other institutions, but I can say that there's a culture of it, if that makes sense, that it almost feels as though like it is expected of not just the top professors and not just any professor, but also the graduate students. It's expected of everyone. I get a feeling that there's an expectation of being well read in your field and understanding where there are problems and things to be understood better. And that reading leads to an ability to pinpoint holes and areas in which your expertise can apply to fields even extending from without your own or outside of your own. There is, the answers and the helping and the furthering of your own subfield of research. But in a lot of these modern day interdisciplinary questions, there's often areas in which your field has, or the bigger questions have gaps, or your field has a space to fill, or a smaller question to answer that can provide a very particularly useful, be a particularly useful building block. And noticing that positions yourself in such a way that you are now a key and integral member of this larger question, and your work is then going to be cited, of course, and blah blah blah, and you get the idea. And it's all an upward spiral from there, as I've come to hear from the people at Caltech, the term upward spiral. But yeah, that is definitely something I've noticed, and something that I'm personally trying to emulate to a great degree. Again, to maybe follow that up with this is obvious. The money leads to great instruments and resources to do any sorts of projects, and that really matters. That really matters in your ability to do novel research, particularly in the field that I am in, of earth sciences, but just in science and the STEM fields in general. The money really does play a huge role. Now, for another thing I've noticed that I am trying to take with myself, and then I guess maybe leave with whoever watches this, such that the cultural and techniques and habits of these kinds of places can be democratized in some sort of fashion. That this is how I'm currently, what's the word? Not validating, but I'm not going to cut any of this out. We'll go with validating. The way I'm validating my own making of this video. Back to the habit. The habit that I noticed is a genuine curiosity for science. And I mean, that sounds obvious, but also it's really not as straightforward and obvious as it may sound. It's a genuine curiosity for science and not being blinded by the rat race of your own field, the rat race of tenure, the rat race of just life. And again, caveat, a lot of these people are probably freed from that, being that they are Caltech professors. Even Caltech assistant professors are set pretty well. If they don't receive tenure at Caltech, they'll probably quickly receive it somewhere else. And from what I've heard, they don't hire people who they're not going to give tenure. So they probably have it easier to free themselves from the rat race. But that rat race that can blind you from thinking bigger allows them to think about collaborations and listen to other people's science. And here again, it goes back to the where can my expertise provide some sort of insight on this bigger question. There is definitely a set of opportunities that arises when you begin to collaborate in a much wider range of things or topics than is standard for your field. It brings in new perspectives, it brings in new people, it brings in new expertise that you don't have, it brings in new minds and new ways of approaching problems, and fruitful things come from it. Fruitful things come in those fields in which you are now growing your name, but also fruitful, like the collaborations and insights and techniques also can turn around and become fruitful in your own subfield, in which by taking a walk, an academic walk, an intellectual walk outside of your little zone, your region, you find a tool that allows you to make your own region better or your own subfield better. And that is something I've definitely noticed. Now, I've definitely noticed that a lot of I've definitely noticed this at other institutions, and I genuinely don't think there's any magic of Caltech. It is definitely a special place, but there's nothing that's going on here that isn't going on at other universities. But there might be a culture of certain things that is maybe what I think, and I hope this doesn't come across like I've already become a Caltech coastal elite. Um, I try my very best to make fun of the coastal eliteness of the place and keep us all as self aware as possible. I try to remain as self aware as possible all the time, but I do think that there's things to be gained from the school, and I guess I'll finish by saying that I'm excited. I'm excited for what I'm going to do. I'm excited for what's to come, and I'm excited to document it so that you might learn a thing or two. And with that, I'll leave it at that. Keep it loopy.